Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 126 of the number one solo queue improvement podcast, the Broken by Concept podcast. Welcome to the podcast, guys, but welcome to season 13, pre-season time, a time of joy. I'm just kidding. There's no joy here. There's chaos, Curtis, pure chaos in the community. The title of this episode is, we haven't figured it out yet, but most likely, Jungle is ruined. It's over. Pack it in, guys. Let's find a new game. That's the consensus from the high elo community at the moment, Curtis, that is going around. Remember, guys, so, this might be the first time you're hearing this potentially. Curtis and I were involved a lot with the high elo community. We get those opinions more so because, we obviously follow these people on social media or hear it and stuff like that. So we're just going to dive straight into the meat of it, Curtis. Obviously, the jungle changes were the biggest changes for this preseason. We were discussing this before. I was like, oh, how's you doing the preseason? And you're like, nothing's really changed. I'm just learning Yone. I'm like, oh, cool. The jungle's on fire. You know that meme of that room where people walk in and thing like that? All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to break down a couple of narratives. We're going to break down some of my personal feelings and thoughts about the new changes. All right, so let's start with the changes themselves. So then let's...
give me a run through in a really simplistic way. What does Elena need to know?
What does Elena need to know? All right, I haven't got that far, Curtis, because I haven't put myself in the shoes.
Okay. But what are the jungle changes? Right, very simplistically.
I'm just going to spew some stuff out to you.
Yes, give me the key vital information.
Okay, well, the first one here, maybe you would need to know for early invades. In those invades where you're like, you got to contest the buff and whoever gets it first.
Yeah.
They've changed level 1 smite to 600 instead of 450.
Okay.
It was funny when I first started playing the first couple of games, I knew that, and my this actually just goes to show how ingrained muscle memory is. Even though I knew it, I kept on waiting for the 450 marker. Very fascinating. I think this will go in a couple of days, but the muscle memory is so deep, dude, for 450 smite. Jungle pets. Now, this is obviously the big change. Everyone's super excited about the whole Pokemon thing. You get to see it evolve. Essentially, there's 3 different ones to choose from: blue, green, red. The first day of the season, I was like, red's the best. Everyone take red. And then the second day, everyone's like, let's take green. And everyone's saying, let's take blue. So people are going to figure out what it is. They usually always becomes a cookie cutter meta one. Honestly, I don't really know. Blue one gives you move speed. Green gives a shield. It's like Mountain Dragon Soul. And red just does damage like the old red smite.
You know what's interesting? Is like if you think about Jungle, since we've played it, there has been it's
changed so much.
Jungle has changed so much.
We'll get into it more. I think this is the critical turning point in the game. This is big.
Jungle items. Like, if you just think about jungle items.
They've changed
in mid, it's been Doran's Ring.
Yeah.
It's since season 1, right? Jungle's been, there was like you remember back in the day, the Spirit of the Elder Lizard thing and the Golem one. And then there was like Wriggle's Lantern and all those. And then there was...
Sometimes you build the warding item.
Remember the warding item meta. You don't even go with jungle item. Then there was like the knife, the ember knife things, and there's been a trillion jungle items.
It's so funny.
It changes every season. I swear.
It does. It basically does.
It's ridiculous.
Even the middle of the season, the whole camp timer thing, that was a huge change. That was mid last year, right?
I think that's a sign that jungle is they don't know what to do with jungle. Like, I think that even at Riot, they're probably still trying to figure out how does jungle fit in with the game holistically. Like what is the sole role of the jungler?
It's definitely changed a lot over the years, hasn't it? So we'll get into it more about what I think that these Riot's direction with what's going on here. So the jungle pets, the key thing about jungle pets is they don't really kick in. You don't get that extra ability from them until 20 minutes in the game.
But aren't they just for helping you get clear the first?
But all of them do the same. And then about 12 minutes is when you get the ability where you could actually smite champions, and then it's basically just a flat slow. But yeah, you don't actually get these till 20 minutes where you have like 40 treats. So, the game's pretty much over by 20 minutes.
Walk me through what happens at 20 minutes.
You get the shield, the move speed, or the dexter damage. Right. Okay. So you can do it on the champions. So that's when your pets
that's a very long time into the game.
How weird's that?
Yeah,
because the key thing is that Red Smite was so OP and everyone took it because you got it at pretty early in the game. And if you got the upgraded Smite, 1v1 in jungles with Red Smite, dude, you just win every skirmish, right? But now that's gone. Again, 20 minutes in the game, you know whether you can kill someone based on items. It's not even about the Smite anymore. So I really don't think that these things are really that important. So currently, my current consensus is that the ability thing, like choosing the pet, it's whatever right now because you get.
Does that impact? This might be a really dumb question, but I know that the camps on the other side of the map you do slower than your own jungle camps, right? Does that have anything to do with the pet? Like your pet doesn't attack in the other side? Is that how it works, or that has nothing to do with that?
I have no idea. The pet just does the pet damage. I think.
Oh, the pet does the pet damage no matter what.
I think that the enemy camps just have high armor or magic resist or something.
Right.
Like that.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, the key thing is that the early game pets.
Nathan Charles is shaking his head.
The early game pets. Okay. So the pets essentially laners can't really do camps anymore. It's really fucking hard for them.
Well,
to do
you
camps.
can, but it depends because I was doing them on your own A.
Okay,
but
that's probably later in the game as well, right?
But it just depends. You need to be good at doing them. Like your champ needs to be really good at doing them to do them.
Yeah.
But do they give it gives less, right? You get less gold. That's correct, right? You get less gold.
Yeah.
Less experience. So same amount of gold, but experience is less. Yeah. And you don't get, because I remember, doing Krugs. I did the enemy Krugs and I did the enemy Raptors. And yeah, you definitely felt like you got less.
So this has essentially opened up, because the pet basically can do AoE, sort of just AoE camps and stuff like that. This opens up so many of those junglers, like Warwick and like Trundle and stuff like that, that couldn't really do Raptors well.
Wait, so that changes if you can do Raptors or not?
Yeah, the pet is basically changes it completely.
Whoa.
Pretty much every champion.
So everyone can do Raptors?
Everyone can do Raptors.
What?
Very interesting, isn't it?
That's massive.
It is massive, isn't it?
That changes jungle pathing completely.
The next thing here is the Krugs change. And Krugs are super easy to kill now. They're actually almost as quick as like a Raptors camp or something like that.
So, because what about wolves comparatively to Krugs?
I'll probably say it's probably about the same. It's
about the same.
Yeah.
Wow. Krugs used to take way longer, right?
So Krugs was the key thing because it gives like the most experience in gold, but it just took forever to take before.
Because you used to talk about jungle revolved around Krugs. Because like if you got
whoever got the Krugs the most usually, is going to.
And you get your Krugs the second rotation. The Krugs are really important.
Yeah.
Right. But now they give less, or just the easy
I think
to kill?
it's the exact same experience in gold. I didn't see that in the patch notes. I'll have to check that.
Yeah.
That'll be very interesting. If that's the same amount of experience in gold as Grom.
I think that's a very important piece of information. If they're easier to kill, surely they would have altered the XP, right?
I'd have to double check that. Yeah. But regardless, though, being able to kill that extra camp really quickly is really game changing. That's going to change pathing for a lot of people. So, overall, the jungle clear is basically, this is going back to the narrative of the high and low community. It's super easy to clear your jungle. Even junglers that were pretty slow before. So I think like champs like tank junglers, the problem with them is that they couldn't really keep up with all the farming junglers.
Like say for example, if you played like a if you played like a tank jungler, the enemy would play something like a Karthus or like
and you just wouldn't.
And you would just get outpaced to shit.
That's right.
But you're saying that doesn't.
It's still happen. A little bit, but way less. So I'm going to shout out Phalaris here. He's the jungle clear guy on YouTube. And he did a test overall with 3 different types of champions. So, AoE champions. So these are like, the Karthus champions, the Diana, the Eve, all that sort of stuff. Standard champions, which is more so, just like your, I don't know, I guess that's probably like the Jarvans or...
So like a Lee Sin in there?
Lee Sin or something like that.
Yeah.
Single target. And these champs would be like the Warwick, like people that couldn't do Raptors before.
Trundle.
Okay, there's a 4th category, and then off meta. Okay,
like complete. That's like maybe like an Aatrox jungle. Or
something. Like a Quinn jungle or Silas or Camille or something like that. So he did through his testing. AoE junglers, the timing for clearing their camps, nothing really changed. Basically the same.
Okay.
Standard improved clear speeds by 5 to 10 seconds on average. Single target, greatly improved clear speeds, 10 to 15 seconds faster on average, and off meta, 20 to 30 seconds.
But that information means nothing to me because I don't know what their starting point was, right? Because those numbers are increases from what their normal clear was, right? Yeah. But that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what their clear was from the first point. So how does that, if we were to...
All right, so if you say AoE's 3 minutes, 15 seconds.
That's right.
So then basically the gist is everything's 3 minutes,
they're all around 3:15.
Yeah, when you full clear.
So there's no difference between playing Karthus and playing Warwick? Very little.
That's right.
Really?
That's not true.
There's no way that's true, right? Charles, educate Nathan. What do we need to know here?
Well, it's not that far off, though. I mean,
but that's
a key thing. Like, again, 20, 30 second difference according to the off meta. I mean, even if they're clearing it 3 minutes and 50 seconds, they're doing it 3:20 now.
Categories are too broad.
Those categories
They're too broad, right? Because there's a very big difference between a Karthus and like a...
Karthus is a 3-minute full clear.
Yeah.
Six is an AoE jungler. He does like a 3:20 full clear.
Right, so what Charles just said there, it said this Fiddle did a 3:20 and the Karthus does a 3-minute. Right, so the categories are very loose.
They're still pretty loose, yeah.
But, okay, so the main takeaway here is that they've basically made jungle way more viable for a whole variety of champions.
Yep.
And the way they've done that, by jungle pets, everyone gets theoretically AoE, so everyone can do raptors.
Yep.
And because they've altered the pulling of camps, right? I'm sure that has something to do with it as well.
Yes. So you can't double.
You can't double
so
camp
explain
anymore.
that to me.
So the double campion thing, that's basically the blue and the gromp, and that's obviously gone now. So basically, everyone's sort of on an even
So you
playing
pull the
field.
blue to the gromp, and then you do the Fiddlesticks W, and then you can do both of them. Okay, that's gone.
So the key thing, though, as well, specifically, is that everyone's pretty much healthy now.
Right.
Through the clearance. So you can play off-meta junglers and actually be like, not dying to the
Because that
camps.
was the fear before. Like, if you played an off-meta jungler, you just get invaded. Now invading's is actually hard. I mean, it actually is two things here. You're healthier in your jungle, but invading is less valuable because it takes you longer to do the enemy camps.
Yeah, we'll get to that part. I think that's a separate conversation.
Okay, so we're going because to me that was the biggest from a laner's perspective, like the whole invade thing. Because I tie everything back to say that invade player on Oris, that M4A1, right? Like that doesn't that completely break his style?
I think Kindred has been affected quite a bit.
Vertical junglers like Nidalee and Kindred and stuff like that were predicated on invading. My noob mid lane perspective was those champions would get hit the most. But I don't know how extreme I haven't tested this stuff, so that's why I'm asking you. Like how big are the testing in terms of like what's the percentage difference of damage you do to your camps versus the enemy jungle camps? 20%.
This probably takes an extra couple of like 4 or 5 seconds. In
very
general,
relevant.
if you think about the general pace of the game, though, like if you're taking a camp, you're taking a camp. You know what I mean? Like I don't really think that changes that much, to be honest. The whole invading thing. Anyway, from experience from playing the first couple of days, I really haven't felt that at all. Like taking the enemy, it's like, I can't take the enemy jungle camps.
Because 5 seconds is a long ass time, dude. Especially if you tell me about the importance of like, I don't know. You always tell me the importance of just clear speed.
Clear speed is important. Well, again, like I actually haven't invaded like early game, but as the game goes on, that I feel like is way less effective. You definitely feel it, but
I'm talking like remember, Kindred and Nidalee were predicated on level 2, level 3. Vertical invades, right?
Yeah, that
level
might be
1,
definitely
2, 3.
nerfed.
Think about what I did to you yesterday.
Yeah. When you invaded me on the
I late invaded you.
Yeah.
I was too slow. So
yeah.
you killed me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
what happened there?
that's probably
Explain that to the
that's about a
audience.
5 second difference, right?
But it worked in the old patch.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
Yeah, so basically the 4 or 5 seconds difference. So what Charles did was he was doing my blue, he started my blue, did gromp, and I was able to do red straight to his gromp. And then catch him on that. But even last patch, I could still make it there, Charles.
But it's a lot harder for the invader now, essentially. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they've made it a little bit harder. And again, I think it's just in general, they just want to sort of not make the early games
not as brutal.
That's the key thing.
So you're healthier.
Yep.
Clears it easier.
I saw a Reddit post saying Yumi can do like 4 camps full HP now or something like that.
Right.
Or like 4 camps by 3 minutes or something
And that's
like
because
that.
the pets do a lot of damage.
The pits just do a lot. That's the key thing.
Yeah, okay.
So it's helping junglers jungle, essentially.
By the way, a lot of people, this might be a bit of a tangent, but a lot of people in the Mid Lane Academy are considering playing jungle secondary because of this.
Oh, really?
Because most people, if you actually think about it, if you have mastery, let's say you're an Echo player, the biggest thing holding you back was the clearing of the jungle camps. And no one really wants to learn clearing jungle camps. But now if jungle is easy, and you have the micro and the mechanics and the champ identity, it's a lot easier. I'm not saying I'm not saying you can play it at a high level, but it's a lot easier to kind of just do your job.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing a carry jungler that is just a farm and get to items.
And even if you're really, really slow, the crab spawns at 3 minutes 30 seconds now as well, which is that's a very interesting change from my perspective because you can move across the map very freely now. Because crab's you don't have to worry about the 3:15 crab time. So just the way things flow. Think about it, if you're finishing like a clear by 3:15, you can easily just walk to the other side of the map. You know what I mean? So if I see a lane was starting to get priority or something like that, I'm much more flexible.
So before, right? Let's say you did a full clear to one side.
You're sort of trapped on one side.
You're trapped on one side because what would happen is that they would double scuttle you.
They could
right? They
double
could easily
crowd,
double
yeah,
scuttle you. But
yeah.
now they have to wait for that scuttle to spawn, so you can easily just go to the other one.
That's right.
Wow. That's actually really big.
That's a big change
Yeah,
as well.
Massive.
So, all right, so the 3 things that round up what's making the jungler more, quote unquote, beginner friendly. Yeah, the pets, clearing, helping you clear camps. You can clear all the camps now because the pet helps you clear your AoE. Krugs means super fast, which opens up more pathing options.
And before, when you were coming out of base on your after your first reset, you are more inclined to try and get back on the map ASAP to maybe help lanes. But now because Krugs are so
have
easy
more
to get,
options.
you're more inclined to maybe do those second Krugs and just
right.
get them down, get them off the map.
And so
And the scuttle going
scuttle
to 330
gives a lot more
more flexibility,
flexibility.
so you can't get double crabbed as easy.
no.
Wow.
Because it's really interesting. You know the path of Red Raptors Gromp?
Red Raptors,
into the
yeah.
Gromp. So, that path is like if I actually think about it, it's not really a beginner-friendly path. It's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get your buffs and stuff off the map. Like, that path is actually a lot harder. It's basically the same speed as Red Krugs Raptors, because Gromp actually takes a long time to do now. So you can basically do Red Krugs Raptors and still be on the top side around the same time. On the map.
Right. So there's actually no reason to
there's
really
not
do that
really
path.
any reason to do that path
So basically,
anymore.
if you want to do that, so you'd either go skip Raptors and
Just do Red Blue Gromp.
yeah,
then
Red Blue
go
Gromp
down. Yeah.
because Red Blue Gromp is like the fastest way.
It was, but now it's not. The Red Krugs Raptors is super fast right now.
But like the thing, like Red Gromp Blue, sorry, Red Blue Gromp, sorry,
Yeah.
is the fastest way to get 3 and get on the map with both buffs and do something.
Yes.
But that you wouldn't really do that often anymore because it's
Just
so
doing one side is just
It's just better.
It's just faster.
yeah, it's just faster.
Yeah.
So you might as well just do the Red Krugs. So the most popular path will likely be Red Krugs Raptors.
That's currently what feels the best. Yes.
And that opens up loop through mid ganks. It opens up
Vertical jungling.
anything. Vertical
ganking
jungle,
bot.
ganking,
So
full clear top side. It actually gives you every option.
it gives you every option in the game.
yeah. So you can just adapt. You can just do Red Krugs Raptors, see what the lanes are doing in between, and then see what you need to do.
That's right. So, which is, again, I think it's more simplified. Like, just clear a quadrant. It's like,
Yeah.
you're learning jungle. What do you do?
So
clear the quadrant.
Do they recommend you paths?
Yes, the jungle recommend path. And I actually haven't really used it. 'Cause I insta disabled it, but
But how does it look like? What's
it just tells you like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Like on the
5, 6,
mini-map?
On the mini map, yeah.
Ah.
And the idea was that it was going to give data with what the best players are doing over time. So it's probably in its early stages now,
Right,
whatever. But
okay.
I didn't really look at it. But again, this is really good for beginner friendly stuff, I think. So yeah. So the other thing as well is resetting camps. This is really important. You know how you're like, oh, should I reset? And it goes back to full HP. Now it goes back really quick, but it only heals up a little bit, and you can re-aggro it really quickly.
What?
So it's way less punishing.
Whoa.
The whole thing's just way less
So is
punishing.
this? You still pull the camp out to the same places?
You can, but the patience meter, it goes very quickly. But you can still kite to the next camps, but it's just not as forgiving.
Right.
So it's more
you have to like
forgiving
really hold it or finish it rather than you can't.
You can't hold any camps anymore.
There's no holding it.
If you hold
It'll
in the
go
circle-
somewhere and then it will never stop. It will.
That's right.
Right,
It's just
okay.
going to go back if you
Yeah,
drag it too
okay.
far. I mean, obviously, it will stop if you're in the circle.
Yeah.
But if you go out, yeah. So you can't just, again, double camp and all that sort
Okay.
of stuff. So yeah, all these things are indicating, guys, the jungle has been incredibly simplified. As you said, people from
Well, that's
MOA.
just one aspect of it, though.
Okay,
Again,
let's
it's what
get
we
into
said,
that.
right? It's just one aspect.
So, the high-low community, everyone's angry that, removes skill expression. I'll read out someone that messaged me from, he's actually a former Saltu member that I worked with a lot. He said to me, hey Nathan, what do you think of the new jungle? I'm super disappointed to decide to pick up another rule because I dislike the changes so much. The dumbing down of counter jungling and simplifying it to the point where it feels like there is no skill expression anymore. This is the common narrative that is going around, right? This guy was a platinum jungler. And, and again, the high-low community have really been, there's no skill expression, And, like, guys, I've done 7,000, 8,000 reviews of jungle games over the last couple of years, all recorded, all on the Saltu website. And, I've been thinking over the last couple of days, like, what is actually the reason that people lose games? What is a jungler's actual role meant to be? And, a lot of the reviews, if you actually look at all my review sessions, anytime someone that comes to review, let's say they play Nidalee or something, and, like, I get to the review and it's like, all right, well, you need to go and practice your clearing better because, you're just too slow on the map everywhere. It's like, okay, sure, they spend all this time, like, it's just like, there's nothing, I don't feel like I'm teaching that person anything. Or like, obviously them going and doing that themselves, it's like, yeah, sure, they can do that, but
Right.
it's such a huge barrier that I don't think is necessary.
So what
to
you're
play
saying
League
is
of
that it
Legends.
was actually really not such a minor part. Okay, not minor. That's not the right word.
It was big.
It was kind of like a thing that you need to be able to do to play jungle rather than playing jungle itself is what
That's
you're
right,
saying.
yes.
So it was kind of like a barrier to entry to playing jungle. But now they just removed that barrier to entry. Now anyone can, quote unquote, begin their journey. Because it was kind of like the way, it's like beginning your journey as jungle.
You have
Okay,
to
we've
know
got to
how to
learn how to
camps.
clear
Need to perfect
camps.
some clear.
That's it.
That has perfect methods.
It's such a small aspect,
It
really,
is,
of
it
what a
is.
great jungler looks like. I mean, yes, it was like, if you look at world-class junglers, it was impressive when you saw a jungler being able to clear perfectly on many champions. Like, that was impressive, right?
Yes.
There is definite an element of skill cap there, right? And you can definitely see that. And there is an element of lost... It's undeniable that there's an element of lost skill expression. That's a fact, right? Because there was skill expression in being able to kite camps, do your camps really fast, et cetera, right? But, it's not but, it's and, okay, that exists, yeah. But that's not really taking away from all the other aspects of what makes jungle such a complicated role, which is being able to pan your camera to sides, identify what's happening with wave states, think about win conditions, knowing like, do you need to hover a lane or whatever it is? Do you need to hover a lane or whatever it is? Because there's going to be a counter gank there,
Yep.
like tracking the enemy jungle, what
Yep.
they're going to do. Like all that stuff is still there.
Yep.
Nothing, or contesting objectives, playing around objectives. Nothing's really changed.
Even invading and trading sides of the map and taking camps is still all
still
there.
really there. Right.
It really is. Nothing's really changed.
Well, if
that
anything, it could actually mean that counter jungler is even higher skill cap because it's harder.
You need to
There's
choose
an
your
argument to be
windows.
made that you got to be way more careful. Like you can't just blindly just vertical invade and get in, get out because people are healthier and camps take longer to get. There's an argument to be made there, just the flip side. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting take. Definitely an interesting take. And to be honest, it actually forces you then to think more holistically about the game, which is probably what Riot's intention, part of their intention was. We want people to be able to play jungle and look at the map and not feel overwhelmed by having to kite their jungle camps. I don't know if I said this on the last episode, Nathan, but from just from everything that I've seen, just with the changes and just my observations, when you think about people who play League, right? You think about the 5 roles. You have top, which is very much like typically attracts people that either want those bruisers or like the isolated 1v1 type lane, or they want to provide a lot of utility via tanking, right? Then we have like mid lane, mages, casters, or assassins, like that style, right? Either one or the other typically. You have 80 carries, scaling mechanical expression through clicking and scaling into the mid to late game. And it's all about you being the carry. And then you kind of have support, more obviously the supportive character. If you actually think about it, each of those 4 roles, you basically tick every box in terms of like the styles. Then you're left with jungle. Jungle is actually, if you think about the people that play jungle at the very start, if you were the type of personality or type of person to want to learn jungle, you're basically telling everyone that you didn't want to interact with someone. You're more of a holistic, big picture person, if you actually think about it, right? Because if you were the quote unquote carry, you wanted to be the carry, it's not intuitive to play jungle. It's more intuitive to play a lane, like an 80 carry or a top laner or a mid laner. So
Get the 10 CS a minute, follow your goal.
and be like the 3-item Victor or the 3-item Tristana, right? But in the jungle, if you want it to be, it's not intuitive to play jungle for the carry role, and it seems like what they want jungle to be and what they intended jungle to be is for the people that are more cerebral, want to think more about the map and think more about the strategy. And it's more of like a semi-supportive role that kind of ticks many boxes. It's kind of like a quote-unquote midfielder in a way. And this definitely makes it make more sense, doesn't it? It's more aligned with that identity of the role. Now, it doesn't mean you can't play a carry-on style in that role. Like, you can play a hardcore facilitator in mid lane. You can play a hardcore facilitator in top lane, whatever. But it's to say, by concept, just with their initial intention, it seems like that was the way they wanted to be. Because they want League to be for everyone, right? They want League to be for all types of people. So when you're playing League for the first time, you have the option to not have to interact with someone and just get your cams and think about the map holistically in pure strategy. What do you think about that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that. I still think you can play definitely multiple styles, but this is the question though, Curtis. You're saying like maybe that's got a more defined role now, but I think with this maybe opening up, maybe lots of more different champions to it. What is this? And I actually maybe have some concerns about this. What is the jungle going to look like potentially in terms of just champions?
Because anyone can play, any champ can
sort
play
of.
jungle.
So what I sort of want to get into now is talking about, I think this is a really critical point in the evolution of the jungle for League of Legends, because I think we're going to really find out now what makes a jungler a jungler. What is it about? Is it ability to... Because, again, the huge part of a lot of the metas that came... Remember the Udyr Hecarim meta? Champs like Nidalee and stuff. The reason that these were in plays because you could clear all your camps way faster than ever else, get that level 4 and be on the map and be super strong.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, what happens to a lot of these champions that were defined basically based off their clear speed? And what makes a jungle champion? Like, fundamentally, if all the clear speeds are very similar... What fundamentally makes
Crab's spawning at 3:30, so everyone's going to get there on time pretty much.
Yeah, what makes fundamentally a great quality jungle champion?
Yes.
Like, how do they design a jungle? Do they even design a jungle champion? Or do they just typically design lane champions and then you just pick which one you want to play in the jungle? Maybe they don't do that. I mean, maybe Borderline Rek'Sai. But will they even make champs like Rek'Sai anymore? That's a really good question.
So we're going to have a really interesting, looking at, maybe there's champs that are more like, playing tanky, facilitator. Could we see more? These are champs that like, maybe it's just pure gank type champions. Like we're just going to 3-camp gank all the time. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And I honestly don't even have predictions or thoughts, honestly.
Right.
It's going to be very...
On the meta, you mean?
Yeah, on the meta. Because again, junglers we've always had the same sort of junglers because they fit those roles very clearly.
You know what jungle...
Sejuani.
From my perspective, what jungle seems like, it kind of feels like it's directly tied to itemization. Like, what's the strongest... Actually, no, sorry, there's two ways I'm thinking about it. Number one, what are the strongest items in the game? Like, what feels like the best items to build on champions? And then, like, maybe that's going to have a pretty big influence on what jungle champions is strong. And also, what are the strongest laners? And what synergizes well with those laners? Like, for example... if it's like a hardcore Fiora, Camille, Aurelia top meta, champions that can either punish those, snowball those matchups, or facilitate like a Sejuani, or on the flip side like a Rek'Sai, might become meta. And what I'm saying in a long-winded way is laners meta shaping the jungle meta.
Okay.
Right? Jungle meta being an extension of what is happening in the lanes. What's happening in bot? Is it very volatile? Are the bot lane very volatile, like Blitzcranks and Leonas and Nautiluses and stuff? Or is it more like not interacting? Or what's happening with, are the mid laners super immobile and volatile, or are they not at all?
So that maybe that's the way things
maybe that's the way it works.
The laners, the jungles will just adapt based on the way that the laner meta is. That's a very interesting point as well.
We don't know. We're in uncharted territory.
We're in very uncharted
the jungle's
territory.
never been like this before.
No, it hasn't. So it's going to be very interesting. Again, I don't really have any predictions so far. Things, because we know that things pop up very. Someone plays this on career and then it's super cookie cutter meta. Maybe who knows? Maybe we get into such a rigid meta. It's like, oh, this is just the way you play jungle, or it could be open. It could go either way. I still think right now.
Yeah, but what you say is a really good question. Like, what makes a jungle? Like what makes a jungler? Like a player? Like as well, why play jungle? Because fundamentally, I always see there's two kind of schools of thought, right? You get like the whole Malice style line of thought, which is like jungle is like you play to screw lanes, play for myself,
get as much gold as possible myself,
farm up, be like a 1v9 type machine, and then dominate people that way. Or it's I am pure Nathan Mott style, which is facilitate lanes and play through lanes, create win cons through lanes, and then you're just kind of like a secondary win con or whatever that basically brings them to the forefront.
You're just sort of just controlling the map.
Yeah, you're my point for the map. But how does that work in terms of like, because I get people ask me like, oh, I don't know if I should play jungle or mid. I'm like, what do you like more? But imagine when you're thinking about that, what do I like more? How do you know what jungle is? It's like you either want to interact with someone in lane or you don't. It's such a, you know what I mean? It's such a weird, like, it's very easy to know if you want to play top or mid, or it's very easy if you want to play mid or bot, support or AD carry. It's very simple, but it's not simple to know if you should play jungle or a lane, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're all a bit all over the place with jungle. And I think it will probably change again many times.
So yeah, so people are really upset about the whole, losing the skill expression of camps. I think it's a fantastic change for the game. Yep, it's way more accessible. I've had some people from Midland Academy be like, "Oh, I think that jungle's a bit easier now, so I'm going to be playing that." It's really interesting when people use that word. This role's easier now. So I'm just going to do a thought experiment. If skill expression is all gone, so does that mean that a gold jungler is now diamond? Does that mean that a gold jungler is now platinum?
I'm gonna use a way more technical way to break this one down. Okay, let's use the framework of the bar graph. Okay, so let's use the framework of how every player is made up of a series of skills, strengths and weaknesses, right? So let's take we'll take we're going to compare two gold junglers. One gold jungler was gold because of their mechanical prowess on their jungle. They played Kindred and they were good mechanically, but they had a shocking understanding of clearing. Another gold player at the exact same rank got there purely on their clearing, had terrible micro, but they netted out, right? Like just over the course of games, the guy who was mechanically good could outplay himself out of shitty situations. The guy that could path really well wouldn't have to take those fights, would get leads that way, but maybe mechanically misplay in mid to late game, right? We take those two players that are maybe both gold 1. The player that has the higher mechanical ability would have more success on this patch comparatively to the player that had advantages through pathing, I believe.
Through clearing the camps.
Through clearing the camps, that's right. So it basically, it's not as simple as this play, if you're in gold, you're in diamond. It's not really that at all. It depends on what your bar graph look like and what your strengths and weaknesses are as a jungler. And I do think that as a jungler, you do probably need to be weighted more towards, you probably have to develop your micro and your skirmishing more because, again, you're not really going to be able to get those massive advantages in the jungle that you used to be able to get, especially in the lower elo brackets.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's the way. And that's, again, what I always think when people say it's easier. Again, you got to think about it, there's certain skill sets,
certain
right?
skills.
Certain part of the easier is the game. But again, going back to it, I've reviewed thousands of games and people lose games from the clearing, but that's just one aspect. Most of the time they're losing games because they're bad ganks.
That's what you say.
Really bad
times.
resetting.
Yep.
Poor
Showing
objective
on the map.
control, literally just taking a fight when all their team's in base, not playing off the lanes. That's
League
all
going to stay. That's going to stay the same.
That's League of Legends.
That's going to stay the same.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Everyone's sort of just over exaggerating, but you're just so far disconnected from actually the
what
game.
Actually matters.
That everyone takes for granted because they've built all the muscle memory here. But I literally review gold games. I review platinum games, and I see the way they lose games. And it's got nothing to do.
Yep, I did a review the other day where a Talon jungle tried to gank it was just like the most ridiculous ganks at like level 4, level 5 that is never in a million years going to work. They get counter ganked. They just lose the game. Like whether or not that person knows how to clear the camps or not or whatever, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And it shouldn't matter. I think it shouldn't matter.
What it actually might do, let's run a thought experiment here. Let's say because now there is actually an increased or people's mental stacks are more freed up, right? In a way, because you don't have to think as much about clearing camps. Maybe if you kind of think about this at scale over a long period of time, maybe people actually are forced to get better or get leads in other aspects. So they're forced to think about the game more holistically. So maybe it actually makes the jungle role in a weird way harder because now you have to think about lanes as much more than you did before in a way. You know what I mean? Like maybe it actually in a weird way makes it, there are actual jungle fundamentals that you have to learn because you can't just like clear faster than the enemy guy. Because I swear, I've seen this even at Master Tier Plus. You look at the enemy jungle, they playing Kayn or they're playing like Evelyn or they're playing Karthus and they don't get invaded and they just get a free level 6 and then they just win the game. And then the enemy jungle fails like one gank or they don't know how to clear the camps properly and then they're down 2 levels and then the game's over. It's like that is harder to happen now in a way, right? Like that sort of game where the other person just has to not die, but that's not really the case anymore, right? So in a way it could be harder in the aspect that you have to really think about lanes and what are you going to do to win the game.
That's a very good point as well.
Yeah, I
agree. So we'll see. Stay tuned. There's going to be lots of, we're going to see some weird champs, I'd say, especially because, this is the first time Riot's going to have to make adjustments, the first couple of days. yeah, we'll see the way it goes, but definitely very interesting. I am a little bit, again, concerned about the types of champions that we could see in the jungle. But yeah, I think overall, from what I've played so far, feels great. Really looking forward to it. Really good. Lowers the barrier to entry to the role. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about just overall additions, Curtis. Things you've experienced playing over the last couple of days. Chemtank Dragon, Chemtank map. Any thoughts on that one?
I don't really have enough experiences to comment on that.
The only thing I can say is that, do you see how many plants there are around, dude?
The plants are cool, though. There's actually one that is really impactful. So I was on red side, and I was at my tier 2. And when like you're getting choked out and they control that blue area, there's actually a Scryer's Bloom on like legit right outside the tower at that tier 2. That you can just cast it onto the
Clear
entire
division.
jungle. Because you know how many times you would die at that blue buff?
Yeah.
Because you can't get a ward in. There's no way to ward that area. And without camping, and I guarantee you either I would have died or someone on my team would have died in that little like entrance there. Like those ones are game changing.
It is game changing.
And the blast cone distance is huge.
That's it for skirmish and stuff like that.
Changes,
That
it
can change
changes a lot.
It
is fun, yeah.
Because it adds chaos to the game.
Adds a lot of chaos.
I think the plants idea is a really good
Plants
play.
is a very interesting one. I think it actually slows down the game a bit, in my opinion, because it's harder to make picks. It's
It is.
genuinely harder to make
The way
picks.
that I think about the chem tank, whatever it is, dragon is against assassins, dude. Assassins will have a nightmare on
Yeah,
that map, dude.
it's a lot harder.
You can't get picks, dude. It's
Yeah.
so hard, right? So. Yeah, that is interesting. I think it's really smart to upgrade the plants. I think
adds a new dimension. That's for
I
sure.
remember, I think it was Charles, something like that, saying, because the first day I think was only Chemtank Dragons. I was like, what dragon maps have you been going? He didn't even realize it was on the Chem because he didn't really change the map.
Ah,
He
got
didn't
you.
realize he had upgraded plans. That was so funny.
Yeah.
All right, next controversial one, Curtis. Team objective voting.
Okay.
All right, so I have found this. My notes here is clunky, no practical use for this at all. Zero practical. It's just an annoying thing on my screen. So it's really funny. All these jungle changes are great, but I see the person in the meeting room that came up with this just be like, God, objective is such a big thing that people contest over. People say that people don't do dragons and low elo and stuff like that. And they're like, we should add timers, but they don't have any feel for the game. They don't realize how quickly things change. And it just pops up, even if it's a minute before. It's not real.
It's
League
not
of Legends.
intuitive at all.
Zero
it doesn't
intuition.
feel good.
No.
It from a feeling, it feels like absolute garbage.
It's
and I no, half the time no one votes, and even if they vote, it's like two people say no, one person says yes, they do it anyway.
That's right.
Like I just
Doesn't change
there was a
anything.
situation where I was playing mid, and then and there was like. Oh, my jungle Evelyn, and then you can tell she clearly wanted to do dragon, and she was going to do it no matter what, like no matter how many votes. And then there was like 3 no votes. She did it anyway. Like it's just like if the jungle wants to do it, she's going
That's
to do
right.
it.
It's up to the jungle at the end of the day, guys. Like they should be calling off.
It's way too theoretical.
It's so
and
theoretical.
I actually, that is something that I feel like is dumbing down the game.
Yeah.
Like I want the players to be able to think about it if they want to think about it. Like the average player does not have the mental stack
to think about what's a good
to
dragon or a
think
bad
about
dragon.
Objectives.
No.
Like think about how good at the game you have to be. How much muscle memory you have to have, how much champ mastery you have to actually think about, okay, is this rift in a minute going to be good for us to win the game or not? Like, should I contest
You got to
this?
think about your resets, like how much the item inventory on your items. You got to think about
unbelievable.
TPs. There's so much that goes into an objective. Like that.
Maybe if it was something that got enabled in like GM Plus or something, like if it was like, but by then, like,
No, I think that the higher the elo, the worse it is, dude.
really?
Yeah, because the game, everything changes so quick, dude. It's so fast paced.
I don't know, man. I just look at goal players do not have the, and
They don't know-
they don't have the
okay.
mental stack to think about
Yeah,
that.
so you have the two aspects of. I think that in high
There are
elo,
junglers that will show on wards in front of their face and they still won't see it. Like that's how like tunnel vision. That's how much of their mental stack is being used on the lane and CSing.
Yeah.
Let alone like
That's right.
you can't even see junglers that are like in your vicinity.
They're literally
let
gonna
alone
gank you.
thinking about objectives. This is never going to happen.
So maybe it's really useful, but again, I just think it's
theoretical. It's a
so
failed
theoretical.
project.
Absolutely,
Get it
failed.
out.
And we mentioned that before, right?
Yeah.
We said that it was complete. But
Too
when they
theoretical.
mentioned this, and you've seen it in practice, it's even worse than I anticipated.
Worse than I thought for sure. Yeah.
The new ping wheel. My notes here is just zero intuitive. It's just overcomplicated. I still use the 4 same pings.
Yeah, I mean, look,
I hate I actually misclick it so many times as well. Like, because it's in between.
but we don't know if that's just bias because again, we
Yeah,
have
we're
a
so
lot of
ingrained.
muscle memory,
Muscle memory,
with
yeah.
the current ping wheel, and I just think that we have to really hold our thoughts on this one because time will tell. I can see it's an interesting one. It really is. I'm conflicted. I think it's good in the sense that it's helping clarity of communication and getting people to think more nuanced about the game.
That approach is good, yeah.
And it does think, like there is more options. I could actually hold the wave or I could bait or like it does help people get aligned and think about the game at a higher level. And it's not like you have to use it. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to use the pings if you don't want to. It's like there as an option. So far I'm actually somewhat hopeful, but at the moment I have to like open the ping wheel and like read them all. Like what is that? It takes me like I just have to read them. So but that will come with time. So I think we put a pin in that one. I think we come back to that in like a month and we'll see where it's at.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean, you sound more hopeful than me, dude. I genuinely think I'm never going to use it. Like, I just think those 4 pings, good to go.
But I think a lot of them are more so related to laners though. Because think about it, it's bait.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a jungler could use that, but then there's hold, and then there was like, what's the other ones? It was hold, push. Yeah, a lot of them are laner stuff, I think.
Maybe laners have more time to use them or support or something like that.
But what's interesting is that even if a laner pings it, that you have to assume that the person you're pinging to understands what that ping is.
Yeah.
So anyway, it might change with time.
Pinging award gives the timer on it. I thought this was like, oh my God, it's so important, so big. I have written this down as well. No real practical use for it, I think, as well. I think that it's helpful because remember, you can only do it when you see the ward, but what does good wards look like? I mean, they're out of vision most of the time. So
I haven't seen it really.
You haven't seen it on your map at all?
Because I've been playing
People ping
Yone,
it?
so my mental stack is
so you don't even care about
completely
wards.
cooked right now.
It might be okay for the bot lane a little bit, but people say that this was like game changing. It dumbs down the game a lot. I really think it hasn't really made that much of a difference.
You know what's funny? And this will tie into the next point, which I'm assuming you're going to bring up at some point, the champ select anonymity,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And how that was a huge positive, right? The champ select anonymity. There's no OPGing, checking people's win streaks, and if there's it basically creates a level playing field. There is no advantage you get by playing the lobby anymore, and I love that. It's like sure you're going to get a troll every now and then, but remember we've said this on many other episodes. When there's a level playing field and you don't know who to dodge, the trolls will get out way quicker. The only reason the trolls are able to stay there is because they get dodged and they go through lobbies, they go through lobbies. So if you actually just let them, you take the LP loss and then they get out of there very quickly. They get banned very quickly. So it's like a joint effort to get rid of the trolls in a way. And sure, you're going to be paired with someone who's on a 12-game loss streak. That doesn't change how much you can take away from a game. But the enemy they don't get to judge their 12-game loss streak.
That's right.
So it always nets out. It's a perfect balance. It's like a perfect equilibrium. Everyone now is on a perfect... Because if you didn't check OPGG and the enemy team check OPGG, theoretically, some person can have an advantage over you. There is no advantage anymore. Which I love. I love that. So it's more brutal in a way, but I think that's exactly what it should be. It's
competitive integrity.
Competitive integrity to more of a meritocracy. But the point I was going to make here was that if you think about, we've played League for such a long time, but it makes you wonder how much of a Wild West League was in like season 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like think about it. You didn't even get your role. You had to ask for your role. Right? Like that. Like think about that. You couldn't even get your role. You could duo at all ranks. There was only 3 bans. You remember that? There was only 3 bans.
And wasn't it only the first person could ban for the team?
Yeah, one person did all the bans. Now you can't even see who's in your team. And just with all the pings, remember pings, there was actually just one. I think there was only like back ping. There was like 2 pings, wasn't there? There wasn't even a danger ping. I think it was just a back ping and a normal ping. There wasn't even a missing ping.
Yeah, the
missing
yellow ping and the blue ping. Yeah,
there was a yellow ping and a blue ping. I think that's it. Or maybe a danger as well. I can't remember. But anyway, what I'm getting at is like the game is so much more sophisticated than it used to be. And it just goes to show, like, looking at the trajectory of like the way League is going and how like Riot is thinking about the game, like they're genuinely thinking about, they're trying to evolve the game with how people are getting better at the game and smarter with the game. Like these pings are a sign, the ping wheel is a sign that, okay, we've now recognized that the baseline knowledge of the game is much higher. And people can think about the game in a much more nuanced way than before. It's like they're evolving with the player base in a way, which I think is really, really cool. And yeah, I just think that it's just cool to note like the trajectory and how much of a Wild West it really was.
It'll be funny in a couple of years back because everyone's really panicking in Champ Selects. When you go into Champ Select right now, everyone link your OBGGs, everyone link your OBGGs. People are losing their minds over this. And you know, a couple of years' time, I think we'll literally laugh at how ridiculous looking up your teammates was.
Oh, yeah.
Because I literally think this is one of the best changes. I hope to God, Riot don't listen to the community on this one.
Yeah, me too.
Because the community does not know what's best for it.
You know, we'll tell the funny story with me and Charlie. So me and Charlie were on the same team and we didn't even know, right? Because obviously Champs like anonymity. And then I just, because people nowadays are asking a lot about like putting your OPGG in the chat, and then I put like some L9 account, like it was like L9 OS account, and I just put that in there, and then we got into game, and then Charles like, "What the hell? That was you."
That's not a courteous thing to do at all. That's
and then Charles like, "The anonymity is getting to your head."
Yeah.
So I'm gonna create a list of OPGGs that I just copy and paste, like in there. Someone asks, like I just put in like Faker's OPGG. You put Sharon's OPG, yeah. Just like fuck with everyone. I love that. It's just so good. So it's just like a jab. It's like a little jab at the
Everyone's
system.
just losing their mind. So yeah, and for the exact reason, as you said, people need to realize that this completely evens everything out, competitive integrity, and yeah, it might reduce the trolls over
Send
time.
Nathan Mott's OPG every lobby.
No, that's not a good one. People are gonna dodge that one.
That's the meta, yeah. Everyone's gonna start linking Nathan's OPGG in the lobby.
All right, we'll see that in high yellow. It's like I'm in the lobby and someone links my OPG and I'm like, oh,
Oh man, it's good.
So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great for again competitive integrity. It's a good point about the trolls being weeded out longer, because the reason why the hostage champ select and stuff like that was such a big thing was because they would never get the game to get the ban.
Exactly.
But if they get in the game now, it's like
they just lose.
Very obvious. Yeah.
They just lose. Yep.
Yeah.
They
lose, but also you can visibly see the person's intent, so you can just report them.
Yep. It's very simple. Boom, 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 straight in. Yeah, no digging around.
I mean, but can't you still hover the champion though? And don't your summoner spells still show? So someone could still do in the champs like team mode Ghost Cleanse or something like that.
Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, yeah, theoretically, yes, they can still do that. You kill still can, but ultimately, like okay, that's there's that. I do agree. That doesn't really change that much thinking about it. But what it does change is, it does prevent people like dodging particular people.
It's more things that it shouldn't be like they're actually trying to play the game, but they're on a 12-off streak and people.
Like I've had many people in the MLA, myself included, when I was learning a champion, and you just can't play because people just dodge you. Like if you have like a 40% win rate on a champion, they'll just dodge you. No, you can't play the game, or they'll ban your champion. That's actually what really happens. I remember I was learning Kiana. My Kiana would get banned when I was learning, and I was actually good. I was getting good at the champ, but because my win rate was so bad, I couldn't get the champ. So yeah, that also changes things as well.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could definitely still hostage your lobby 100%.
Yeah, you kill can.
So that's actually gone. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
that spec, which is pretty important. But yeah, the key thing there is that people dodging and having narratives about the game before even getting into the game about their teammates. I think they're very good to get rid of. Because everyone's just got the habit of looking up their teammates all the time. I even see it as well, with the whole blitz thing. Even in the loading screen, everyone's just spam clicking everyone to see everyone's stats. I see that all the time in my reviews. Sometimes it's like part of the add-on or whatever.
Yeah,
for Blitz GG. So lots of good changes. I think overall some things we've put a pin in. Jungle meta will be very interesting to see, especially competitive over the next couple of months. But overall, in terms of my strategy, I'm sort of just doing exactly the same. I'm playing my same champions and just having a feel for it.
So you're not learning any champs over the preseason?
I will learn champs, but I just want to get a feel for it on my current champs so far. So I'm still playing Rek'Sai, Xin Zhao, Jarvan, And then maybe I've been doubling. I played a bit of Elise, but I have muscle memory from that champion anyway. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. And
Okay.
obviously, you're learning Yone right now.
learning Yone.
Because you think that the laners haven't really changed that much.
Well, I would say Roller was a bit of a failure.
Okay, Rod of Ages, dude. The first couple of days, I just had Cassid in place. Everyone's like, "You got to do this, is
Bill
broken."
Rower.
Dude. That item is unbelievable.
Right now, it's a bit of a bait, but they'll change it. Like they're going to hotfix it. I think 400 gold cheaper,
Yeah,
from
they
the
made 400
3200 to
cheaper.
2800.
Like I literally have many reviews that I did. I'm like, oh, okay, well, what we've learned here is that I think the guy had a Cassidon mid and a Malzahar top, and they both had Rod of Ages. I'm like, you just cannot fight this Rift Herald.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. You're going to lose.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I think it will have a place. Right now, it's a bit of a bait item, but with every new preseason, there's always some shitty items and there's some really good items. Right now, you just got to get a feel for them all. How do they feel? I'm feeling out a lot of the tank items with Yone right now, like the Juk Show item and the Heartseeker, whatever it's called, that one, and tried to do Frostfire. I'm just going through, trying them out, getting a feel for them. That's the only way to find out. I mean, at the end of the day, you can look at the stats all you want, but just feel the goddamn item.
Yeah, just got to play the game. Yeah, tank items. I actually haven't seen that many in my games, to be honest, at the moment. So only a couple of days in, I got to play more tank junglers to actually play them.
So is there anything else, Nathan, you wanted to talk about for the preseason?
That's pretty much my initial thoughts on the changes so far in the first couple of days.
Okay, so I want to switch things up a little bit here. So I think it was it last episode or maybe the episode before, there was someone who wrote in, I believe they were even in the Saltu, but I could be wrong. And I think his name was Harry. And he described how he was, remember he was talking about boredom in his games and how he would get bored. And so I'm going to read out what he said. And Gifts is actually studying, I'm going to butcher this, he's studying, doing his PhD in psychiatry or psychology or something like that.
Something with the brain.
Yeah, something about that. And anyway, I'm going to read what he said. And I think it's something that if anyone experiences boredom, right, just in general, I think this is worth listening to. So think about it like this. A traditional description of boredom would be a lack of stimulation, but League is anything but unstimulating. If someone is having concentration difficulties in the game, there could be a million reasons, but I personally find, quote, the game doesn't have enough to catch my attention, quote, end quote, to be highly unlikely. It is far more likely that he's experiencing avoidance/avoidant behaviors as a result of his anxiety. This avoidance could be manifesting itself as an avoidance of engagement, as his anxiety is not permitting him to engage fully with the game. It is an attractive theory that swapping from normal games, where Harry actually mentioned that he felt confident in normal games, he mentioned getting to the point where he could, quote unquote, carry his friends. But to rank games has placed significant pressure on his ego and his identity as a quote unquote good player. So his anxiety prevents him from engaging with the game, could be a defense mechanism against that.
So the boredom's actually a defense mechanism.
Yeah, it's a defense mechanism because again, he felt like in norms was fine because there's no pressure, but when it's in ranked and his ego's on the line, he actually has to keep up that identity that he has to be a good player. That's getting quote unquote attacked. Boredom is kind of like it's like a defense mechanism because then he's not trying. The reason that this is relevant is that without addressing the core underlying anxiety in some way, Harry will never feel ready for ranked. Harry may find that he will need to take a more active action plan to preparing himself for ranked instead of just quote unquote waiting it out. I also don't think this is due to a lack of motivation either. It is likely that Harry is extremely motivated, but is currently struggling with his anxiety and possible avoidance behaviors that result from that. Now, we actually put an illustration here, and essentially the way it worked was like anxiety leading to increased scanning for danger, physical symptoms, attention narrows, shift to self, and then this is where you kind of look for a way to escape or avoid that anxiety, and then that gives you short-term relief because now you're quote-unquote bored, you're not engaging with the game. That gives you a bit of like an excuse or relief because again, you're not really having to try and fail in a way. But in the long term, it actually increases the physical symptoms of anxiety, more worry, loss of confidence, coping, increased use of safety behaviors, more tendencies or more increased likelihood of being quote unquote bored. In Harry's case, his avoidance, i.e. boredom, leads to immediate anxiety relief, but also an inability to concentrate in game. This may in particular flare up when he makes a mistake, as his attention is now shifted to himself. In fact, he mentioned that he stopped being able to concentrate once he makes a mistake. That's the avoidance in action. Harry's avoidance is causing him short-term relief, but long-term is sabotaging his success in the rank space by keeping him from improving and hitting his goals.
Very interesting. So his boredom is about in general playing ranked. This obviously would this apply to champion? Because people say they get bored of the champion. That's just a defense mechanism to not actually commit to the champion muscle, because they don't actually want to
100%.
see, if I put in 200 games, if I actually suck at this champ, ego's gone. I suck at this game. I'm not talented.
I've seen this many times with champs and role. People who swap roles and people who swap champions, it's typically a defense mechanism for them not wanting to try and fail. Majority, like a lot of the time, especially if they really enjoy the game, funnily enough. Because a lot of these people, they're scared of identifying them or like hitting a roadblock because they don't know how to overcome that roadblock. Which is inherently stressful.
Or as you said, they got to keep up the narrative.
Or they got to keep up the narrative that they're a good player.
Naturally talented.
And the best in
gamer.
the group and they can win and carry or whatever it might be. Which is very interesting.
The brain is a fascinating thing.
Yeah. And this can all happen without even you really being, you're not really aware of it. It's all subconscious.
Yep. That's right. That's the key thing. It's not conscious. It's subconscious.
It's subconscious. He's not consciously avoiding his anxiety, trying to get rid of his anxiety. This is just a defense mechanism.
Being bored.
Yeah. Something to think about for a lot of people out there.
I like it. All right, that's really it. I think we'll just jump into mailbag now.
I've got one last thing actually while I'm on this topic.
Yep.
So I'm not going to name names. Out of respect.
That's rare
here.
on this podcast, Curtis.
Yep.
Usually you're firing everyone at MLA. This person done this. This person done this.
But I want to say this as a really cool breakthrough. Remember a while ago we spoke about using bot games, right? As a potential way to
For new players.
get a feel for dominate, just getting
Learning
kills,
how to kill
and
people and
fighting,
carry
and
games.
getting in the action and not being scared of fighting, right? There was someone who joined the MLA knowing that they can't get reviews, just to get help with the environment and learn things, right? And I believe they were in Iron. And one of the MLA members really took interest in this client and was like, something's off here. And he's the one who actually came up with the bot game theory. He brought that up to me. And so he went ahead and he actually organized and overlooked this bot game experiment with this given client in Iron. I believe she's Iron. Anyway, what happened is they first went into a normal bot game with other people. But what they realized is that bot games with other people is kind of ruined because you get some people that just get really fed and take over the game and ruin it for
You don't have a chance to get fed and carry.
That's right. So what they did is that they went into a custom game and put all bots on both teams. In this game, where there was all bots on both teams, the person legit struggled. Couldn't really even win these games. Was struggling as intermediate bots.
Yep.
And what was crazy is that this person was actually unaware of how, quote unquote, I don't want to use the word bad, but unskilled they are, because in ranked, you can actually get carried. In bot games, you can't get carried. So what bot games does, it completely and utterly exposes your level of play. And so I think bot games, especially as a beginner, starting even just with bot games, because that's what I did actually, bot games with bots on my team.
1,000 bot games.
I did bots with bots on my team, and then I did bots with players on my team, and then I did that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So bots with bots on your team is actually the ultimate form of initially learning the basics of the game.
Got it.
Because there is no one that's going to compensate for your mistakes.
Yep.
And it's complete and utterly, it's just brutal. It's just you, and you have to learn how to win. And then you can ramp it up, obviously. So I just thought that was
So once you start dominating that, then you think the next step is to play with bots against bots with actual people on your team.
And then normal games.
And your goal would be to like out carry them.
Yeah, out carry them and win those games confidently.
Yeah.
And then you'd move on to normal games.
Then ranked.
And do normal games for a long time. And then and so I actually did this experiment with my girlfriend. I did the bot game experiment. And she only went 6-2. I said, yeah, it's good. Good effort. It's not good enough.
Not good enough.
It's
You should not be
enough.
playing ranked. And she was eager to get into ranked.
Yeah, 6-2. I'm like, yeah, well done. You know, you did okay, but you should be going like 16-0. Like to the point, like I was getting 32 kills in my bot games. You know, you need to be getting like, you need to be dominating the bots. If you're not dominating the bots, that's a problem.
You're not even ready for normal games.
Not even ready for normals.
Let alone ranked.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what actually, this is the last interesting point. The guy in the MLA that was overlooking these games, right, and reviewing these bot games, he was actually noticing that the bot games had better micro than a lot of the iron players.
Yeah.
So in a way, you actually learn more from versing bots because the mechanics of the bots are better than iron players.
Very interesting.
Which is another interesting point as well. So, and that's actually why if you play a shit ton of bots, you could actually probably bypass iron and bronze
100%
completely and at
yeah.
least get to minimum silver.
Silver, yeah.
Which is, again, another interesting point. You can completely bypass those lower ranks.
Yeah. Most of the, like people like reach out to me and stuff. They're like, oh, I just started playing the game. You know, I had like maybe competitive gaming experience background. They're like instantly still high silver most of the time when they come because they were able to
have a feel and
you should if you're generally stuck in bronze or iron. I think that you need to be using the normals and even tracing out
bots.
the whole bots. Very
Try it
important.
as an experiment. See how you go on bots. I just think this was a really interesting experiment, and it just goes to show that bots have a real place in the learning journey.
Very important. Yep, it's
Nice
definitely
little
something that
experiment.
we've overlooked. Because I mean, initially when we started this podcast, we were saying straight into ranks, you got to have rank to see your
that's right.
level of skill. But there is tools out there.
Yeah. Well, there's
I wonder
another thing
if-
we're wrong about.
I wonder when bots, if they were, if they do they make them a bit better. Yeah, maybe we could just be using them as trained. Maybe you could just jump to gold or platinum.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No
Very
idea.
interesting. All right, we'll jump into mailbag. Yep. Away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. All right, our first question or write-in to the mailbag today. Obviously, we said last episode that we didn't get through all the season recaps from our listeners. So we're going to go over, just a couple of them. Still, we'll keep chipping away at them over the next couple of weeks because, reflecting on our season is really important so we can take our learnings into next season. And next episode, we'll probably do how to use preseason. That's what will be our next episode about as well. All right, so this one's called Trust the Process. This is from Senor Kingpin.
He's from OS.
Is he really?
He's the Singe player.
No way.
I played with him in solo queue.
Are you sure?
Yep. I remember that name. I swear. I mean, I could be wrong, but I swear that rings a bell.
Let me double check. Oh my God, he is from OS, yeah. All right, I wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for getting me from Platinum 3 to 400 LP Master in 11 months of playing dedicated focus solo queue. I haven't signed up with the MLA or Saltu, but I've been listening to Broken by Concept for around 7 to 8 months now. Since the start of 2022, I decided to learn my favorite character, Singe top lane, properly and push the limits with the way he's played as a champion. I studied countless hours of games from high LP players from all servers and even more hours intensely reviewing my VODs. Using this process, I fell in love with my champion and I've become one with him. We've talked about that before, right?
Coming one with the champ.
Coming one with the champ. The hard work pays off. I'm not ashamed to say I even have a lame playbook from the 600 games I've played this season. However, there were many times I lost my mental and doubted myself, but once I did, I lose faith in the process and for every game I queued up. I fought it with honor and made sure I learned something. So leave this as a message to anyone listening or reading. If you trust the process, the process will trust you. The LP is a figment of your imagination. You can't take it in-game with you, but the skills you learn along the way, that's what you use to beat the shit out of your opponent. Make sure when he OPGGs you, he's shitting his pants as the thought of your lane phase, not at the side of your tier graph. And he said, P.S. You guys cover everything that you need to climb with, but I think the most important thing that I remember is that if so, maybe not, we'll see. If I never listened to this episode, I'll still be in Platinum. It's comforting knowing that time will make everything all right. I'm a big proponent of time. I love time. And he trusts the process over time, even though he had his struggles with it. He doubted it and stuff like that, which is very normal. That's a real normal journy, It's not a typical, and I hate it when league players, they join our programs, they think it's just like, up. That's how people think when they okay, I didn't do coaching at all, or I didn't apply the process at all. Now I do process, now it's all the way up. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, I love that. It's like maybe so, maybe not. You know, you don't know where you are in your journey. You don't know when things are going to click. You have no idea. That's the and typically most journeys, like you said, are going to go, okay, we're probably going to plateau here for a while, and then might even go down a bit where you maybe overwhelm your mental stack, and then boom, you might shoot up, and like a few things will click. Boom, you like go up like randomly out of nowhere.
That's right.
And then
I could have said that last season when I ended lower the last season. I was Diamond 1. I could have just said, oh, it's all over. I can't. I tried so hard. I did the process all last year and I ended up Diamond 1 still. And if it wasn't for that season, I learned so much.
Yeah.
And that got me to, top 20 this year.
I've been referencing that your journey so many times during this past like 2 weeks because there's a lot of people in the MLA that had an average season, right? There's a handful of people off the top of my memory that finished the same rank as they started. Mm-hmm. And what I said to these people, I said, it's very easy to write this year off as a complete failure. From a sheer rank perspective, sure. But I guarantee you, these people out there that have played hundreds of games across the season and the developed champ mastery and they've been coming to coaching sessions, even though they finish at the same rank, I guarantee you there is so much knowledge and intuition and feel that has been developed there that is just being held back usually by stage 4 issues that's why most of the clients were with the same rank. They like weird mental blocks that when that is fixed, when those things are fixed, you're going to skyrocket. Like things are going to click way faster. And that's exactly, and I reference your thing where you were master in season 10, Diamond in season 11, and then Challenger in season 12. It makes no sense for Nathan to be Challenger when he went backwards. But the reason being, he learnt a shit ton in that year. So yeah, I mean, we actually had this Sims play in one of my games, and then I think he was in my lobby, and he's like, "Oh, I've been a long-term listener of the BBC." I'm like, "Holy shit, that's crazy!" And then
he was platinum apparently months ago.
He was legit plat. He went plat to master 400 LP in 11 months. Which is an insane climb. And yeah, we end up winning the game together. He's a Singe player.
I do remember. I have played with him actually.
Senor Kingpin.
Yep. Awesome.
He's owning his identity. He's having fun with his journey. He loves his shit. He's becoming one with the champion, learning his matchups, getting into the details.
Falling in love with his champion, that was a really important thing he mentioned.
Yeah.
That's so important. You got to love all the tiny details of the champion.
Yeah, and Singe really is as well. Like every champ, you would think that these champions don't have a massive skill cap. They do. It's the small details that really add up. Like knowing whether you can stat check and kind of stay in combat with Singe would matter a shit ton. Knowing whether or not you can proxy a particular wave would matter a shit ton. Knowing how to create roam windows and all these amazing things. I mean, it's just the culmination of a lot of small details. And by the way, a really good Singe is it's really annoying. I hate versing Singe.
Me too.
So annoying.
Yeah. All right. Next one here is from Dan G. He's a Saltu member. He says, "Hello, Nathan and Nathan's co-host." Doesn't even say your name. Jeez.
How dare you, Dan? That's the most disrespectful thing anyone has ever said on the BBC. This guy's got to get the boot, Nathan.
I love him already. I joined Saltu in July at Platinum 2. I'm currently Plat 1, though I've got into Diamond twice since joining Saltu. I don't have a good mind for the game, but Nathan's help every week has made the process so much easier. 4 dot points. What helped him this year was use scripts to disable chat and hide LP in the client. Completely changed the game for me. I had to accept that I'm not the ice-cold LP Terminator like Nathan Mott. I'm the LP Terminator. Yeah, he actually has a script that a lot of people use that helps him hide the LP.
Yeah, there's some guy made it.
Oh, really?
There's someone guy in the community made it a while ago. His name's Curtis.
Oh, wow.
And it like automatically, it automatically kind of shuts down the client or something and loads it back up or something like that.
After a game.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting. I don't know if he could use that one.
I don't know if it's the same one or not, but that was one that was going around.
There's all these like programmers and stuff in sold to an MLA. Reviews after games need to be very short to preserve flow states. That's what helped him. Watch more VODs replays of my champion. The small details of how Vi executes ganks and teamfights are extremely important. He was a Vi player. And then he said the last thing he resolved to is filled with Diamond 1 master players. Use them. Post clips to the review channel we have. Helped him a lot. Draw out the intuition more. Then math out the gold experience values of all the possible choices to prove that. The master players were right most of the time. So just looking to people that help him that are high elo, which was helpful as well. So yeah, so for a journey like Dan, Dan, there was lots we had to break down.
What rank did he finish?
He finished plat 1, but he was plat 2 when he joined, but he went to diamond 4 many times. So he went down, up and down. And again, I think he's sort of the same sort of journey. It's like he's been around Saltu a lot, but it just hasn't really clicked until maybe, who knows? Maybe in future seasons, maybe not. But he says at the end here, thanks for all your help, Nathan. I'll be here until you kick me out for falling back to platinum too many times.
By the way, the clips and like in my Discord, it's VOD questions is actually sometimes better than getting a review because League is a game of like just small moments, and oftentimes you don't need to review the entire game. It's just one thing.
There's one thing that impacts the whole game, but there's trends in these moments. You'll see that, and you just apply a couple of
getting
principles
different perspectives of these, even if it's not from me or another coach, even just from like another high elo player, can go a long way. Like, I wouldn't have thought of it like that, and oftentimes I'm actually surprised that people come with very different answers. Like I'll put in an answer and then someone says a different answer and then another guy says a different answer. And it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about just getting different perspectives, and finding what one works for you. And what I encourage people to do is even if you're not high elo, sometimes chipping in and putting your perspective in there. Let's say a goal player just kind of looks at that clip, a goal one player, be like, that's what I saw. You can learn from anybody. You can actually learn from a lot of people, regardless of their rank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they may see it in a really non-overcomplicated way. They might just see it at a really basic level. You just missed your cue or something basic that maybe you overlooked. You're overcomplicating it.
You're like looking for an answer you want, and then everyone's like, nah, actually, it's just this.
That's right. So you never know.
All right, next one here is from Francis. The title of this email is, I learned my best lessons from being stuck in Diamond for a year as a master player in Season 11. This is basically the same journey as me, isn't it? Hi, Curtis and Nathan. Sorry for the long email. This means a lot to me. My name's Ivan. Oh, sorry, his name's Ivan. I was a high master top laner in Season 11, but never reached master this season, peaking 2-2 in master promos. I played since Season 4 as a Thresh one-trick, high gold on my first season of ranked in less than 70 games because I used to play Dota. Going back into his competitive background, that helps him a lot. I swapped roles multiple times, but I fell in love with Gangplank a year after the rework. I one-tricked him to Diamond in Season 10 and two-tricked GP and Shen to High Master while using the BBC mantras last season. I reflected on how I did not reach Grandmaster last season using your process, and here's my conclusion. I played like a challenger for the first 3 waves, thanks to the reviews I did to my early games that I learned from Nathan, but I would fuck up my skirmishes and team fights anyway, so it didn't matter. That's something that happened to me, is that I can play my early games perfectly, but that's just one part of the game. You need to focus on other things. At the end of the day, the game really does come down to skirmishes and team fights, but the early game's still very important. He said, I made changes to fix this problem and more. Little did I know that these changes would do more harm than good to my improvement for this season. Here are the changes I made and the thought process behind each one. I won't review my games anymore. Instead, do more 1v1s as a top laner. I did not have much choice anyway, but to lane versus the enemy top, evade jungle ganks and scale, the people that should review are the junglers, mid laners, and supports. Top and ADC don't get much from it.
Okay.
So these things, I think these are things that...
These that he did that didn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 1v1, in doing 1v1.
And he's saying his thought process of what? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just go through, what we'll do is we'll go through
his dot points.
them all, and then we'll kind of loop back.
All right. Play more champions. Since top lane is the most lane-centric role, having a good lane matchup is more important than any other role because we have no choice but to lane. We can't roam, we can't trade sides, and with the elemental dragons, we don't get much help either. Peer reviews. I made new online friends while climbing, and whenever I play with them in solo queue, or if I had a bad game, I often ask them what I could have done better or should not do. These 3 changes obviously did not work, and here's why. Because of the nature of Gangplank, I had to drop him because I was not able to pilot him properly because I was learning Aatrox, Ornn, Maokai, and Sejuani, and I was not picking him at least once per day. So this is him just playing too many champions.
Overload.
Yep, Champion overload.
Too many complex champions.
I developed bad habits by playing 1v1s with my challenger top lane online friend. I'm winning my trades in Diamond, but always dying to ganks because I do not practice warding and tracking because my intention was always on trading and CS in. How does your... I mean, I guess we're sort of going off track here a little bit. The 1v1s mid lane academy, how does that work? Because obviously it's not the feel of the actual game, right? That's what he's saying here. It didn't work for him.
So 1v1s are a very specific tool used to learn very specific things. So you don't actually 1v1 to get better at lane. You get better to learn very specific things. So let's say you want to learn the trading patterns of a particular matchup. That's what 1v1s are very good for. So you can learn, okay, how do the trades and the waves, how do they interact together? When do I win trades? When do I lose trades, etc. Also, on top of that, you can learn you can actually focus on things like, isolate things like CSing. Like, for example, a lot of people struggle with balancing CSing with trading. That's something you can isolate. Or you can actually focus on dodging skill shots in your tethering, spacing. These are things you can isolate. So 1v1 should always have intention. You should have intention when you're doing 1v1s to learn a very specific thing. These are only small very small skills that should complement the fundamentals. You can't actually learn the fundamentals in 1v1s because the fundamentals are directly tied to junglers, right? The whole point of warding and leaning is to not die to ganks. The whole point of getting good resets is so they can't roam somewhere else on the map. These things are directly inherently tied to the game holistically that you can't really learn in 1v1s. So it's purely things like micro, trading stuff, and the spacing and sometimes wave management and CSing.
Got it. And that's what you make clear with the 1v1s. You're not actually going to learn how to avoid ganks and that sort of stuff, which is important.
Yeah, people don't go into the 1v1 dojo knowing that they're going to be a better mid laner.
Okay.
They're not going to win. It's just very small aspect. So that's why I said if you don't know a matchup, that's what the most commonly used. I'll say the two most commonly used are someone's really struggling with the micro aspect. They're struggling with hitting skill shots or spacing or tethering, or they don't know a matchup. Simple as that.
All right, the next point here. The people I ask for advice are just as clueless as me and have egos higher than Mount Everest. The most common response I get from them when I ask for their perspective are, Team Diff can't do anything. At the back of the mind, I believed it. So this was the online community for peer reviews that he built.
Right.
And, that's the thing, this is, it's still very difficult to find people that can be, not all have all these invisible narratives around them.
And that's the great thing about the Saltu and the MLA, right? Yeah. Because you just get called out. Yeah. I mean, in MLA, you say one thing like that, you're just getting instantly called out.
That's right. When the durability patch hit, I have nothing to fall back on. I don't have my champion mastery. I don't review. My mid game is still shit, and the early 1v1s changed because lethal range is rare. Heavy trading is not as rewarded as before. I was stuck in Diamond 3 as a high master top laner with a 47% win rate. I was sick of it. I had enough. I played on my second account, played Ornn and pretty much one-tricked him as a last resort of at least hitting master. I learned him fast and even consistently wins hard matchups like Aatrox Darius Jax, which is popular in my ELO and region. He's from the Philippines. I got to promos on my second account no time. I failed the first promos and blamed the DCs and bot diffs. I had 2 weeks left, made it to my promos again, and that's when he went 2-2 in his master promos and lost the last game. He never really lost because of lack of champ mastery and the same problem, mid-game execution. I did not identify my role in the game correctly. Isn't it ironic? I changed everything, but my last game back against the wall, I went back to my most trusted champ, but I lost because of the same problems I had in the first place. That's his last game in Season 12. Gave up on chasing that Masters border and accepted my defeat because it was not healthy for my relationship with the game. I need to get back to the old process and suck it up. Lessons. There are no band-aid solutions. Sometimes the answer is not sexy. My ego is telling me that I do not need reviews. I do not need to focus on my decisions in mid-game and wrote it off as mechanical misplays. I was too greedy to even change everything when I went from Diamond 3 to Master in one season because I was upset I did not make it to Grandmaster. Deft was right. The journey is the reward, not the destination. If I was happy about my journey, I will not change anything just because I did not hit Grandmaster. So that's like the typical, I didn't get, this is my goal. I knew I could see it. And then you just throw it all in the bin and be like, okay, I've got to do something else because I didn't get my goal. But, you just got to chip away over time. It helps a lot. I'm going to go back to the trust the process email at the beginning from Senor Kingpin. He's got a new approach for Season 12 he wants our thoughts on. He's only going to play 3 champs, GP, Ornn, Aatrox, since their champs he enjoys the most. I even play them mid because I queue mid secondary and they also work well even if I'm weak-sided by jungler. Perfect the early game again. The pianist from one of your episodes really inspired me. For one beat, you are a drummer. For one wave, I am rank 1. Take it one wave at a time. Base training greater than peak training. I've also been doing this to my physical training. I do not work out to failure because it would prevent me from working out again the next day and risk my health. Instead, I focus on the execution and train full body every day for more volume, less injury, and more consistency. In League, I do not want to overemphasize on learning skills in game. Instead, I'll just have to focus on my form in game and spotting my mistakes out of game. In Curtis's bell-shaped model, I believe it's a normal distribution graph. I will make the bell thinner even if I stay on the same peak instead of making it higher but wider. I want to join your communities once I finish my engineering degree. Feel free to flame me for making yet another change. Thank you for everything. Really mean it. Keep putting out high-quality content.
I want to comment on the to a few little things there. I think the one thing he said about I don't want to focus like on things in game. That's very important. You know, it's very like the only in-game learning objectives you should have as a laner are things that are tied directly to like lol states. You know, everything else should be learnt out of game and in your review. The other thing that I really want him to do that will help you massively as a top laner, okay, you need to understand how you are or how you aren't contributing to the map state. Now, let's say he's playing Ornn. Ornn's still in his pool, right? So let's say a situation. Let's say there was a dragon fight that your team, 3 of your teammates died that you weren't there for. That's a negative experience. That feels bad as an Ornn. It's like, well, I'm an Ornn. I'm not there. My team died on that side of the map. Okay, I've now recognized that's a negative experience. That's something that I really don't want to happen. Okay, now you need to go in the review. You need to identify, okay, why did that happen? Did you contribute it to this situation in any way, shape, or form? Did like your laner like get to roam down or something? And what could you have done to either prevent this or make your team's life easier?
Great question.
Could you have been there somehow? Could you have called that dragon off somehow? Was there any sign that the game was telling you that they weren't going to win that fight? Was it worth sacrificing creeps to go to that wave, to that dragon fight? These are questions you should ask yourself. Now, you might not know the answer, but across the course of a season, when you're getting to the review and you're asking these questions, how am I contributing to these situations? Was there anything that I could have done to prevent these things from happening? That's where your brain's going to start to tick and be like, interesting. Okay. Rather than me being in the side here, I probably should have grouped, or I could have called that off, or I could have actually had tempo here and gone there first and actually started a fight first with Ornn, or whatever it might be. And so I would go deep on that stuff if I were a top laner, because in our games, we know the best top laners are the ones that translate their pressure to the rest of the map. They come there as a 2-0 Aatrox. They start, destroying a dragon fight.
Wreaking havoc
across the map, and then they win the game that way. They don't win the game by split pushing topside over and over again. I mean, unless you're playing something like a Fiora or something, right? But, even then, a lot of them just group because they need to win fights for their team if they're fed. So, yeah, really understanding what do you get, like what bang for your buck are you getting? If you're staying on the side and getting plates, what are you losing? What is the missed opportunities for doing that? If you're getting 2 plates topside as Ornn, but you actually missed a roam window mid, that's a very good thing to analyze. Was it even worth me going for this?
It's like a thought experiment.
Yeah, experiment.
Like that's what I always did when I learnt about win conditions in my path, and I never learned this from videos. Right. All I did was, this is what I did. What if I did the opposite?
Yes, what if? And run through alternatives. In an alternate reality where I gang top instead of bot, what happens? Or I trade sides of the map, what happens?
Very powerful tool.
It's especially as a top laner, you need to get very, very good at that.
Because your decision making is so map impactful. If I'm split in, the whole map's changing. If I'm here, it's very clear decision making that changes.
The other thing I will say on this, and it's a really good framework I use for coaching my clients and even in my own gameplay. Let's say there's a skirmish. Whether you're there or not, doesn't matter. But let's say for this case you are. I like to use a framework called the micro and macro framework. I will always look at a fight from a macro perspective first, micro perspective first. So I'll say to myself, okay, was there a way that I could have played this fight better mechanically? Could my positioning been better? Could my target selection been better? Could I have been more patient with my abilities? Could I have been, controlling vision a little bit better here that would have forced them to get one shot? Whatever it might be, I look at it from a micro perspective. Then, and only then, once I've done that, I will look at it from a macro perspective and I'll say to myself, why am I even here? Is this even a good fight to take? Is this coherent with the win condition? What is the other alternatives? if you follow this framework for every major part of the game, whether it's a rift fight, whether it's a 2v2 on the river, whether it's a dragon fight, a baron fight, you will, your intuition will over time get much better, both macro-wise and micro-wise. So follow that process. It's a really simple framework that I cannot recommend enough.
All right.
I love, though, the reflections, how he said what didn't work.
Yeah, what didn't work.
Right? I love that. Rather than what did work, what didn't work. And sometimes that's actually even more powerful because he tried the other side of the coin there. But fuck me, the no reviewing. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
All right, next one is from Syker. He's a legend in the Mid Lane Academy community.
He's the man, the myth, the legend.
He was one of the first members of the MLA. All right, so hi, I ended my time with Mid Lane Academy almost 2 years ago now, and I joined Saltu in August. This was my first season jungling, and I had a great time. I started Silver 1 off provisionals and managed to peak Diamond 1 85 LP.
Wow.
But ended the season Diamond 3 with Graves, Kindred, and Diana. I played so many games between August and November, 1,100 games. I must have had 25 sessions with Nathan in 3 months to reach this level. Key takeaways. I need learning objectives. Once I don't have an objective, I start to just play mindlessly. I need to be in a neutral emotional state to perform. I can't be too excited about win streaks or too upset about loss streaks. I can't be praised for lots of winning, and I can't be put down with lots of losing. LP gets you ahead. I need to hide my LP using the hide LP script from Dan G from before. I worked on these things in order. In gold, I played Diana and worked on figuring out how to clear camps efficiently so I could be extremely strong in team fights. That alone got me from gold 4 to platinum. No overcomplication, just be farmed, be strong, carry game. Also, I can proudly say I've never died to a buff or gromp. In platinum, I switched my main to Graves at this point, and this is where I started to pull my hair out. I was stuck in platinum 4 for a while, and my Nathan put me on a simple learning objective. Do red Raptors gromp every game and learn how to fight with Graves. Once I learned how to fight with Graves, we moved on to level 2 invades in every matchup to learn what I could do in every matchup. This helped me reach Platinum 1, which had to be one of the hardest ranks to break for me. I completed promo 7 times after flip-flopping between Platinum 2 and Platinum 1 many times. It was here where I introduced Kindred into the pool, and funny enough, I got through this rank basically first time in Kindred, which is really weird. I never really thought about it much. I assumed that I was at a diamond level, but overplayed Graves, and I just needed some novelty, not sure though. And then lastly, his giant journey in Diamond. I focused on early game pathing and formulated game plans based on what I knew about the game. This is the rank where I focused on tempo, assessing and comparing enemy options, not just my own. Proper objective control, nitpicking skirmishes. I zoomed through Diamond 4 and Diamond 3 once I was promoted to Diamond. However, I bounced between Diamond 2 and Diamond 3 many times. On my climb to Diamond 1, I found that confidence is incredibly important in this ELO. And every ELO, of course. Thanks, Nathan, for the review sessions. I'm excited to see where I end up next season.
So it's funny, he ended the same rank in Diamond than he was in Mid. He got to D1.
Oh, did he really?
Mid.
Okay.
And that's where he mental boomed because he couldn't get Master.
Okay.
And it dropped to D4.
Yep.
So it's very, very similar.
Okay.
So this is going to be a massive...
The time thing. It's like, because this is all the excitement. It's like, the expectation, Silver 1 a Diamond, that's success.
Yeah.
But what happens if we're stuck? So this is going to be a big one.
This is going to be a big one. Like, because he's been this rank for a long time. I would think about when it was MLA 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now he's done it now in 2 roles. The same rank. So getting him over this next hurdle is going to be a very interesting one.
And this is a hard hurdle.
A very, very difficult hurdle.
This takes seasons potentially. So
yeah, and that was the thing with Syker. It was a lot of the mental stuff, and it was a lot of staying focused, and it was a lot of dealing with not, your champ being shit sometimes, and all that stuff. So it's going to be very interesting. It's interesting though as well because he you would think that because he played mid to a high diamond level, the skirmishing ability probably helped him. Like it would be very rare that someone could just pick up Graves and then get to diamond and then Clay Kindred get to D1. Like that's very, very, very quite unique. So he definitely had the mechanical aspect of things down pat. So I think this next season is going to be his big challenge. This is where this will be super interesting. See what you can do with him, Nathan. He's a hard client.
Yep. I'm aware we've got our issues. I mean, he doesn't 3-block or anything like that.
Yep, that's
So-
yeah.
And we've had this conversation. That's
Yep.
just the way he enjoys playing it. So
Yep.
we'll see how we go. But he definitely tilts and sabotages very easily.
And honestly, I say this time and time again, League is 50%. Half of the time is getting better at the game. The other half is reducing self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage,
And he is very good at self-sabotaging.
People are experts at it.
Yes, he's mastered it, dude. He's mastered it. So you have to whip him into shape, Nathan.
That's my job for next season. All right, guys, that's it for the preseason. Our notes, our initial thoughts on the preseason. Things could change. We'll see how we go. Maybe I'm completely wrong about the jungle, and this is just an episode to just laugh at me. We'll see you guys next week.